Morning and welcome into another edition of Mic'd Up, our new morning show here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and, of course, the mothership Pittsburgh Sports Now. Mike Vukovcan, who is joining me, started this off earlier in the week, and the only thing we haven't really had on Pittsburgh Sports Live is a legit morning show, so why not deliver one now? We're just going to touch on whatever the news of the week here in kind of a quicker format. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I'm going to be joining Mike Vukovcan now for this show as his co-host, as we now provide Mic'd Up here in the morning on Pittsburgh Sports Live. And of course, Mic'd Up is brought to you by Martin Lawn Services. Number to call them, 412-849-5894 for all your lawn care needs. Mike, good morning to you. We're going to have a cup of Joe and get underway here. And we're getting underway. Yeah, you got the mug there for you, and we won't disclose what's in that mug. We're going to assume it's coffee. Yeah, we're going to assume it's coffee, whether it's spiked or not. It will be a question that you can keep secret. But to get underway here, as we're going to go through the docket, Pitt hoops. It's been a controversial week or so. It's been a roller coaster ride of a week or so. Nike Sibande ending up with 21 points in Pitt's game last night, and becoming actually a rare Pitt Panther who's not named Champagny, Johnson, Horton and company, who puts up 20-plus points. So obviously Pitt loses two of those co-stars of Champagny this past season. Champagny even a question mark of his future at Pitt because he's played so well this year. But is Sibande now the future of this program, and do you expect more of this to come based on what we saw from him last night? He was a sharpshooter out there, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's been a weird situation, Mike. And first of all, I'm glad you're joining me now. We're doing something new. Nobody's ever had a Mike and Mike show before. This is completely new.
Never has happened in life.
Oh, ever.
So it's Pittsburgh's version, and there's not another one on right now because that's been disbanded. So we're the new one.
Yeah, I'm glad to have someone in the mornings to talk to instead of myself. It was a lonely, but it's a weird. You have mixed emotions
right.
following the game. Pitt won impressively. It's too good back to, although they lost the last game. They won, and they had team contributions. William Jeffers had a good game. But to your point, Nike Sibande, the downside is, and I've been mentioning this a little bit through Twitter, and I've talked to Alan off the record about it. This is one head scratcher this season from Jeff Capel. And I just don't understand his usage or non-usage of Sibande. He got here as a guy that for 3 seasons averaged double digits at Miami of Ohio, 15 points a game. Pitt fought like hell to try to get him to be eligible. And until these last 3 games, because of necessity, because of the transfer.
It really has been necessity, yeah.
Yeah, because of Tony and Johnson being gone, he had to play. He's had back-to-back games. He's had double-digit points twice. He's rebounded. He's played like the player everyone thought he could be. And you're just left to wonder, what was he not playing for? And Capel never answered that question. And I don't care if he's telling me I'm just guessing here. This is, usual coach stuff. He didn't practice well, doesn't play good defense. I don't care any of those answers. When you're a team that doesn't have the talent that Pitt has, they don't have the talent at Duke that, you have still have 4 or 5 star kids on their bench. Pitt doesn't have that. When you have talented players, you have to use them. And I think it's, unless there's a really, really, really good answer for this. I find it inexcusable that what Capel's done this season with the usage of Sibande, and it's probably cost the team some games.
Do you think it played into his relationship with Xavier Johnson and even Tony? Because he won't disclose exactly what that conversation entailed when they left the program, but it appeared from an outside perspective that it was a bit of a rocky relationship. Did he maybe give in to them too much and it actually hurt the team and now the future of the program because they're gone and this season's done?
No, I don't. I think these are 2 separate situations. I don't think Nike has anything to do with those guys. I think that's just that was just chemistry between teammates, and I don't had nothing to do with Nike. But I still want to find out. It's one of these things that we'll probably never find out unless the interesting thing, Mike, is that he has a decision to make at the end of the season. He should be graduating, but like all players, he could decide to come back next season.
Right.
Press conference last night, uh, Capel said that there's a chance he's going to come back, but it's something that won't be discussed or agreed upon finally until the end of the season. I don't know if I'm him, the player. I don't know. I guess I would come back, but I would also be asking my head coach, well, if you wanted me back and I'm a big part of the future, what in the hell were you doing me at the beginning of the season when you could be riding the bench?
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a topic that really hasn't been discussed too much or made enough about. But we only have a limited availability with Capel, and most of the time it's about the games. But it was a good win, but I think it still left a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, to say the least, right now surrounding this Pitt basketball program. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti. It is mic'd up here on a Wednesday morning here, our new morning show on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Subscribe to that button down there. Hit that button. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's free to do so. Thanks to our sponsors like Martin Lawn Service.
Yeah. Pitt wasn't the only team in action last night. West Virginia. Yep. They lost in overtime. Heck of a game. But where do you see this team, Mike? I don't care the fact they lost to a Baylor team in overtime that for 90% of the season, 95% of the season was undefeated, one of the best teams in the country. And if you look at West Virginia, unlike college football where if you lose, you're done, I think Bob Huggins has a really good team. He has no bad losses on that schedule. When you lose to Kansas, Gonzaga, Oklahoma, and he's won some games, so it's not as though they haven't beaten anybody and they've lost to everybody.
Right.
They've done it both ways, and I know the bracketology is coming out now. We're less than 2 weeks away from March Madness. Where do you see this team? I think they're a top 2 seed. I think they should be a number 2 seed, and I'm not sure what could take them off the number 2 line. I guess somebody winning a conference tournament, but I think West Virginia has a real good chance to make a long run in March.
Bob Huggins, the Hall of Famer, despite not yet officially being a Hall of Famer, approaching those 900 wins. And I said this on my show recently, Mic Drop on PSL, which also will still exist in addition to this show, that this might be Bob Huggins' most impressive coaching performance of his whole career. He's dealing with a global pandemic. Oscar Tshiebwe was the prospect that they thought would be an NBA type of player that would lead this team to his national title, leaves the program out of nowhere. And talk about it, something that we'll never know, Mike. I think we're never going to know about those private conversations because Fran Fraschilla, who's very close to Bob Huggins, basically admitted he thinks there was some controversy and that was kind of in the works months prior, which would not be necessarily kosher with Huggins. So he's had to deal with so much, retool this lineup so often, change the lineup constantly. It went from a McBride-led team to now a Culver-led team. And yet, you look at that loss to Baylor last night, Culver only had 9 points. McBride didn't score much until the end of the game. And Sherman 26 off the bench, but he ends up being the leading scorer. And you almost beat Baylor. That's a game they almost won. I think this team could go to a Final Four. I think I said this actually on Twitter after the game. I think anything shy of a Sweet 16 is a major disappointment with how good this team is. You never know, though, with matchups in the conference tournament. They have had big wins, Kansas in particular, Texas Tech. I don't think they can get to a 1 seed because there are too many losses. The schedule's really, really tough, though. But I think a 2 seed makes sense. I thought it was a bit asinine, for my favorite term, that Joe Lenardi threw out there on Twitter before the tip of WVU Baylor that the Mountaineers are a 2 seed, but if they lose, they're now going to be a 3, and Houston's going to be a 2, who hasn't played anybody. Because this Mountaineer schedule has been brutal. They went 3-2. They went 3-2 in the gauntlet of a schedule that everybody thought would ruin the year. And they only had a 1-point loss to Oklahoma, and then this loss to Baylor. So they're right in there, and they dealt with COVID. They missed games, and when they missed those games because of COVID, they weren't actually even able to practice. I think this is a very, very good team. Nothing's guaranteed, and the conference tournament's going to be really, really rough, which then will segue, Mike. WVU's schedule has been brutal, as we mentioned. They are one of the better teams in the country, ranked 6th as we're speaking, and coming off that loss to the number 3 ranked Baylor Bears, who were 1 or 2 all year, and really only they've been playing worse now, but they had 2.5 weeks off because of a pandemic. Is the Big 12 the toughest conference for you, or is it maybe the Big 10, who is kind of top heavy? They have some elite teams too. They have some top 10 teams too. But for me, the Big 12 is just so brutal right now. I think the Big 12 is the toughest conference. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I agree. I've been making that point on Twitter. I think 1 through 7, they're very good. When you have Texas Tech is the 7th place team in the conference, I think that tells you something. And below that, TCU, Kansas State, Iowa State are having down seasons. Those are your bottom 3.
Oklahoma State's ranked 17th, and they're in a ban. They can't even go to the postseason, and they're 17th in the country.
You got Texas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Kansas. Right. I think it's without question. I think a lot of this has to do with like it is in football. I think Big Ten's a good conference. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's a little bit overrated in the fact that people are still even mentioning Michigan State as a possible tournament team. Give me a break. Shouldn't even be thought of. The Big 12, Maryland.
Ohio State obviously is the top.
You have 3, I think, really good teams: Michigan, Illinois, and Iowa in the Big 10. And then after that, I think Ohio State's a good team. Wisconsin, I think they're all even. 7th place team for the Big 10 right now is Maryland. I think the 2 elite teams, if you gave me a choice of Baylor and somebody from the Big 12, or Michigan and Illinois, who's the top 10 teams, I'm taking the Big 12 teams. I just think they have more overall depth. Rutgers is a team they're trying to talk into the tournament. I don't think they're that good. I'm serious. Yeah. Michigan State, Indiana, all those teams, they're okay, but I think they're strengthened a lot by the media's love, the national media's love for the Big Ten, which is
it exists. I think the only pushback I can give is I think the best 2 teams, maybe the best 2 teams out of the conferences combined is probably in the Big Ten. Maybe Michigan, maybe Ohio State. Baylor could be that argument, but Baylor's not been playing well recently because of the pandemic. I think those teams are probably better than West Virginia, who would probably be the other team you throw in there. But in terms of depth, the Big 12 has the depth. There's 10 Big 12 teams that if they made a Sweet 16 or beyond, no one should be surprised. Whereas in the Big 10, there's probably only 2 or 3, even if maybe there's a higher likelihood that somebody from the Big 10 goes to a Final Four than the Big 12. It could be one of those rare years. The Big 12 has 6 teams in the Sweet 16, but none in the Final Four. I mean, that's possible, but we'll see. It certainly will depend on matchups here moving forward. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here, mic'd up in the morning. This is a Wednesday morning here, as we once again are brought to you by Martin Lawn Services for all your lawn care needs. Here on Pittsburgh Sports Live new morning show. Now, Mike, we went from the college ranks to the professional ranks, and those college kids can only dream of money like this. As J.J. Watt rakes in the cash with his new deal with the Arizona Cardinals, breaking his own news, actually, which was rare. Adam Schefter did not get this scoop. This was from J.J. Watt himself, photoshopping himself working out with an Arizona Cardinals t-shirt. Only a couple of years. It's not like he's signing a 5-year deal here. It's a couple-year deal. He's probably going to look for another contract before retiring. Ends up with $15.5 million per season, almost $16 million. The Steelers, though, were involved, and many fans wanted him to have that Watt trifecta. Permane Brothers said they were going to change the name of the restaurant. Fans went a little nuts with it, but we now learned the Steelers were a team he was considering. He was considering playing with his brothers. He did not make that decision, but some members of the national media are saying that because he decided against the Steelers and his brothers, even knowing the money being the way it is, that that's a slight to Ben Roethlisberger. What are your thoughts on JJ's decision, and in any way does this connect the dots to Big Ben and his apparent impending return?
No.
Thank you.
I don't. I don't think there was any. Did he give consideration for it? Yeah, it's his brother. Yeah, okay. Would I
Yeah,
like to play?
it'd be
Would I
rude
like to
not
play?
to, right? Yeah,
Yeah, would I like to play with TJ? Of course. And then you get to reality in the fact that the Steelers are still $24 million over the cap. This guy got 23 million guaranteed. Where are
yeah,
they going to fit him in on and they're still trying to figure out how to work with the quarterback numbers. That's $41 million. It was one of the dumber conversations that I've heard. The fact the Steelers are going to try to sign J.J. Watt. No, they weren't.
yeah.
They did a courtesy call as though you have to do, but that was it. But for the national media, and I like Andrew Filipponi. Andrew and I get along very well.
Yeah, he threw out the
His,
tweet about Nick Wright and
his
kind of
tweet
complimented
today,
him. Yeah.
Filipponi, if you're watching this, I hope you are. I listen to you, so watch us. But
Yeah,
the
we like the fan here. We both done work with the fan people and over there, so I hear
the
that.
best sports personality in the world, Nick Wright. Give me a break. That guy has. He says the dumbest.
It's a hot take. He's a hot take artist.
Hot
This is a
take.
morning show. There's a national morning show right now that Nick Wright is hosting while we're on here. He's throwing out hot takes for sure.
Yeah, just total to get people to talk. He didn't sign because of Ben. It has nothing to do. It's not a slight on Ben Roethlisberger. This national media and the way they like to take shots at Roethlisberger, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
Who's the other dope?
There's Max Kellerman, Skip, obviously.
yeah,
These are our morning show competitors now.
Yeah, Skip Bayless. Those guys have no idea of anything going on in Pittsburgh, and they just throw things against the wall. And they know the Steelers' national fan base. So in order to get people to talk, the Steelers have more fans than anyone around the country. So say something really dumb about the Steelers or Ben Roethlisberger, and get people to talk and maybe watch your morning shows that aren't doing very well.
People feed right into it, though. It
Yeah.
works. That's the thing. Maybe what Pony's alluding to, that it's successful. He actually Nick Wright went from doing local radio, then doing a digital platform. He was doing this, and then he ended up going national by throwing out hot takes and getting people mad. It has actually worked, but I hear you.
Yeah, it's a real dumb. The whole basis of his that this is some sort of a reflection on Ben and the way he's felt by the team, that the fact that JJ didn't want, or T, whatever the names are, JJ. They get mixed up here. It's too early in the morning.
Yeah.
But dumb take by this thing, just like they ran with all the Antonio Brown stuff when that was going down.
Right. They had no idea.
Ben was the bad guy for Antonio Brown being a child when he's 30 some years old.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We knew that. I had my personal encounters with AB. I was like, this is just not correct. We're having to track his IG live at 3 a.m. I don't think it's been there. No. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I don't think Mike and Mike here are agreeing.
Did you ever think in your
No. I did not think in my wildest dreams that was going to happen. And the reason why, and this is what we learned, Mike, this is what we learned. This will be a way to kind of close up shop here on this morning show for today. We learned that J.J. Watt was not willing, and this is the trending topic of the week. It turns out J.J. Watt was not willing to have an unpaid internship with the Pittsburgh Steelers just to be with his brothers. Not going to happen. He was not going to take $15, $16 an hour to play with his brothers. And there were reports the Steelers and the Browns even potentially offered him a deal. There were other teams that offered him equal or more money that maybe he didn't want to play with, because you also have to have the connection that he has DeAndre Hopkins with Arizona, a former teammate of his, their friends. But the Steelers, $9 million, $10 million, that's the best they could probably do. No, he's going to take the most money he can with a team, and a Cardinal team that was really good last year towards the end of the season. So who knows what they can be. I honestly thought two things. One, it was never going to happen because of money, because J.J. Watt wants to make money. He wanted to get a contract no matter what the scenario is. He's not going to play for free just to fit in with the Steelers and his brothers. And number two, I said this on my show on Mic Drop, I didn't even think it made sense for the Steelers in terms of being a high priority of theirs. I don't care about the family. What J.J. Watt does well, he generates pressure and gets sacks on the quarterback, especially now when he's more of a specialist because he's hurt all the time. That's all the Steelers do well, basically. And
Yeah.
everyone can agree. The Steelers get sacks. They've set a record in doing so. They get pressure on the quarterback. They need other things to help them. So, and I also don't like J.J. Watt being that security blanket if Devin Bush will get hurt again. J.J. Watt is always hurt. He's a Hall of Famer, but he's always hurt. He's not going to be your backup if your 20-something player gets hurt and he's over 30. So that was never going to work. I think actually the Steelers were saved from themselves by him choosing to take the money that he did. And I don't begrudge him. He was never going to play for free to play with his brothers. So who knows if that's ever going to occur. Maybe Derek Watt will somehow get shipped there and he'll have that connection, but he's not playing with TJ.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say maybe the Steelers will do the right thing there, and
yeah, he can play with one of his brothers that the other one got to. But
he can go out to Arizona to join his brother. But that's it. We'll be talking about them over the next couple of weeks because there's no question there as the free agency opens up, they need to find ways to trim money, and I'm sure those will be more discussions we'll be having throughout the week here.
I'm sure. Again, this was Wednesday morning's version of Mic'd Up here, Pittsburgh Sports Live's new morning show. He's Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti. We knocked out Pitt, WVU, and J.J. Watt. See what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And also stay tuned for the special broadcast on Friday. We're going to be doing these every morning, but on Friday, you really want to tune in to see how ridiculous we can throw out our own takes with a bold prediction special this coming Friday morning. So good morning to you, and hit up the sites to see what we have covered throughout the day.